Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Rafiki Media, and welcome to Hear My Cry, a podcast where we discuss pertinent questions such as, what if the people we disagree with have the point? Maybe I should ask, do they know what the point is? Or do they pretend to know what the point is? So I'm your host, Dr. Minko, an electronic engineer, a faith leader, and a firm believer of the power of an honest dialogue. In this episode, or in this podcast, we are kicking a journey where we talk about issues that many will probably disagree with. So on this subject, we have someone who knows how to navigate these tense waters with wisdom and courage. His name is Rob Smith. He is an engineer as well, a faith leader also, and he is a political analyst for Rafiki Media. Welcome, Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Minko. It's very good to be here. I look forward to chewing on the subject. It's very passionate to me, and I'm so glad that we're beginning this podcast so we can make the point of view that in order to be even politically effective, you need to fully understand, take to heart the argument of your opposition.
Okay, so please, I know you are a faith leader, and so you are an engineer. Just to give a perspective, so what is your field of expertise so that our audience can appreciate perhaps the person who is in front of them?
Well, let me introduce myself a little bit about who I am as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Africa. I lived in northern Rhodesia, which became Zambia. I've lived in South Africa till I was 19.
Mm-hmm.
Immigrated to the United States. From that time on, 48 years ago, I've lived in Uganda. I've done work in Swaziland, lived there for a year. I've done work in Nigeria, Uganda, Tanzania, and so I'm truly what you could call an African American, because my roots are here. It goes back to 1688
Mm-hmm.
On my mother's side. So I'm thoroughly African, just like you are.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I've had 48 years studying, analyzing, enjoying, seeing the benefits of the most remarkable country on earth in so many respects, the United States. And so I'm able to offer a perspective as an African, learning from my own experience in the United States, where I've been very involved politically for at least the last 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
Primarily on the conservative side.
Okay.
But have always felt like we are most effective in arguing our point if we have listened to the other side and let them define their position, not let us define their position.
So we can clearly see that this is someone who's been all over the world and has been in different political geography, if I may put it that way. So he's been America, they have their own politics that side. Africa, we do our own politicking this side, the way we do it this side. So who is Rob Smith, if I may ask it in that way?
That's a great question, because it would be amiss for me to not say that I love the Lord Jesus Christ. I love the Word of God. I trust the Word of God.
Mm-hmm.
And so in any sphere of my life, whether it's work, whether it's play, whether it's political analysis or political opinion,
Mm-hmm.
it has the foundation of God's Word, which to me gives it a secure foundation.
Okay.
So we're not trying to figure out what truth is,
Mm-hmm.
or trying to make truth malleable. We know that truth is solid. It comes from the Lord, comes from the law of the Old Testament.
Yeah.
And so within that framework, that informs my political analysis, that informs how I run my business, how I treat my employees, how I engage life. And so that's very important that be understood.
Okay.
Foundationally. My dad was a pastor. I grew up in the church. I've enjoyed reading historical novels that include biblical perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite readings is actually Systematic Theology by Wayne Grudem, for example.
Okay.
And so I've tried to ground myself with a base knowledge of how the Bible suggests that we live individually and corporately, and believe that that is the most effective way for us to make political decisions. And I would argue that if we look at the success of countries that have leaned into that direction, including the United States, including South Africa, where we are right now to a large extent, where biblical principles are upheld, blessing is abundant.
Amen.
And so that's my perspective.
Okay.
And I've gone through those periods of time that where I think I'm right on everything, and I've really been humbled, particularly in my later years, of arguing with people after hearing their perspective rather
Okay.
than presuming their perspective, and that's
Okay.
what we'll unpack.
Yes.
On many tissues as we go forward.
Yes.
We can take some really tough issues where it just seems like there's black and white and no in between. But we might be surprised to find that we actually are all in between, and there are nuanced differences.
True.
Huge practical outlaying, but if each understood the other, I think we could find compromise that allows us to live together with a feeling of purpose on both sides.
True. True. We live in the world where even just admitting that you are listening to the other side becomes dangerous. So, if I may ask, why do you think it is so, where listening to the opposition, listening to the view of someone you disagree with becomes a problem? On social media, we see people canceling each other, neighbors canceling neighbors, family members canceling family members because they oppose each other's view or they have different opinion. Why do you think that is so?
Social media is a trap, and not just social media, the written word. And so much of social media is via the written word.
All right.
You see, if you go to Facebook, you're not getting everyone talking with a lovely dialogue. You're getting hard words.
Yes.
Very often the words don't come with a smile or a frown, so you interpret them your own way. And so it's very difficult to have an honest discussion just in small 1 or 2 sentence sound bites. And so we'll let these beautiful birds pass.
Yes.
Yeah, they want to be part of
the beauty of nature.
You see? Oh, man. Now everybody knows now that we're in South Africa with these Adidas.
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
they want to be part of the dialogue, you see. Hear my cry, they say. Yeah, and so what we just see is we see even people who agree on 98% of everything devouring someone that disagrees on the 2%. We've even seen it politically this week where, on Trump's big beautiful bill, one senator says, I can't vote for that, and it's like, now he's an enemy.
Yeah.
You see? We can't govern like that.
True.
And we can't dialogue like that. We can't understand the other person's position if we're not even willing to accept those of us that agree on most things. And the reality is that none of us agree on everything.
True.
Right? If we do that, one person has been lazy. We're individually made. We've got our own backgrounds. We've got our own stories. We've got our own perspectives. We've got our own points of view that we've heard that someone else may not have heard. How can we possibly assume that we're going to agree on everything? And if we don't, then you become an enemy. You see? But beyond that, those people that clearly have a position opposite to my position, if I just write them off because we disagree, first I'm presuming what their position is without them articulating their position. Secondly, there's almost a form of dehumanizing them, not seeing the humanity of God, the deity or the God image in them, because we're all made in God's image. And so it's a form of dehumanizing someone if you just write off their opinion without hearing what they are actually saying. Because I do believe that at the end of the day, each person honestly believes their position is a position that furthers the cause of humanity. And so if you honestly believe that, but we disagree, and I honestly believe it, then at least in our heart we have the same objective. True. We want a better society. You see, you're not opposing to me because you want to wipe society out. You see, even if I argue that your position wipes society out, you see, how will you even listen to me unless we say, we have a common starting point.
Yes.
We want a better country.
A better country.
We want a better community.
Yes.
You see, you want it your way, so let's hear why you think your way will work. instead of me presuming your argument and then
that you
arguing
know the
against.
way.
Right. So it's a matter of just trying to understand and hearing the other person. We want to hear the cry,
All right.
which also means that you will hear my cry.
All right.
You see, so we're not going to say, all right, I'm a conservative, let me hear every liberal cry, and then we go
Okay.
home. You see, I want to hear those cries and then say, okay, here's my cry.
As well.
You see, or here's the cry of the conservative.
All right.
Here's the cry of the liberal.
All right.
You see, does the liberal want to destroy society as we know it? Well, the conservative, some of them will say absolutely. You see, and look at this and this and this. And then the liberal is saying, you had no idea what you're talking about. Look how destructive you are. And they're both seeing the elephant from different sides. And there's probably an element of truth on each side, and we need to grasp that truth. Okay, truth is freeing.
Yes. Yes.
Deceit is not freeing. So if I define your position, and then I argue against the position that I've defined, you're going to sit there thinking, that's not my position. You see, you don't understand it. That's not my heart. You see, so let me hear your heart's cry. All right, hear my cry. I want to hear your cry.
Yeah.
We may differ in terms of how we should govern ourselves given that cry. But if we hear each other's cry, we might find that we're more closely aligned than we thought we were, especially in the outcome. You see, and then we can walk back and then make our arguments as to why we both want, in many cases, the same thing.
All right. So maybe let me put a bit of a spin here.
Okay.
Do you think people confuse listening with agreement?
I think that some people might think if you listen and therefore can articulate your opponent's perspective with some heart, that somehow you're giving up on your own position. You see. But the reality is you're not.
You are not.
You see. Now, it may soften your position. You know, I remember a discussion where I heard a woman just radically pro-abortion.
Okay.
And I was in it, and I'm radically anti-abortion.
Okay.
You see. But I heard her story, and her story had me in tears. It didn't change my position, but it softened my heart to hear her cry and to understand her cry. You see, she lost a 16-year-old best friend to a botched abortion in a back street during an era where abortion was not legal.
Okay.
You see, and so from her perspective, it was so impacted by that pain and agony and loss that she came to certain conclusions, you see. And so if I can start with her in that pain and then walk together with her, she may listen to me. But if I just say, you support killing babies, she's not going to listen to me.
So there needs to be a bit of compassion here.
But when you see your human story in their direction that they are arguing for,
yes,
you see, and if I can hear her position and she hears my position, we may find, A, that we develop a friendship even though we disagree, and B, we might find that where we land is a position we can both live with, you see. And so it's just critical that one is able to hear without argument, without presupposition, what someone's point of view is and why they have that point of view, you see. And one of the best ways to do it, and my wife and I learned this later on in our marriage, and we very seldom fight anymore, because one of the things we've learned to do is to repeat back to each other what we think the other person's point is, you see. And so if she makes some point that jars me and I want to argue back, instead of me just saying that's nonsense, I'll say, okay, so is this what you're saying? For example, she might say, you never listen to me.
Okay, so you first need to make sure that you are on the same ground before you make an argument.
Correct. In fact, in many ways, and I have to credit the man who came up with this thinking. And if you Google 3 practices, there's a friend of mine, Jim Henderson. Now, Jim Henderson and I disagree on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Okay, theologically, he's a Christian. We disagree theologically on a lot of things. Politically, he's on the other side of the spectrum, you see. But I totally admire what he put together, and we are very close friends.
All right.
Okay, we trust each other, we love each other, you see, but we disagree on so much, you see. But what he created was a forum where you speak on a topic for 2 minutes in this forum, almost like a game, but I think you can expand it into any kind of dialogue, where for 2 minutes you speak on a subject that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And all I can do is ask clarifying questions. You brought that word up just a minute ago, clarifying questions. You see, so I can't argue with you. So if you say, the earth is flat, I
Okay.
can't say you're an idiot, blah, 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 blah. I'll say, you say the earth is flat. I'm curious about what do you think when you see a lake and it seems to have an oval horizon.
Mm-hmm.
I can ask questions, but I cannot argue. And then you can clarify your position. So I can ask clarifying questions,
Questions.
you see. And then in some ways that stops, in three practices, that stops it. There's no arguing, there's just hearing.
Okay.
But then I have an opportunity to then give my perspective. And instead of you arguing, you ask me to clarify what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
You see, you finish up by me walking away knowing exactly why you are motivated to have your position, and you know what motivates me to have my position. And that's the foundation on which I think you then begin to try and find some way of governing together in the political realm, or living together in a spiritual realm, where you understand the other party's perspective.
So in essence, disagreement doesn't have to be like threatening,
Right.
because that's the way it is today. Like if you disagree with a person, then it's like you feel either threatened or the person feels threatened, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
Right.
Because there's so much presumption. If you just write someone's position off, you're an idiot, blah, 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 blah. You see, I mean, it's just demeaning, number one. It doesn't accomplish anything, too. And it probably reveals, if we really were honest, that I haven't fully understood your position. Okay, unless you are an idiot, which means you have an IQ of like 28 or something like that, you see, which is unlikely, you see. So if we disagree, Dr. Minko, who's far more educated than me, for me to write off what you're saying without understanding it is me saying you're unable to think through things properly. But I have to presume the best of you, you see. So it's recognizing the humanity of the person who disagrees with you, you see.
All right. No.
And vice versa. You expect the same back if we can learn this way of dialoguing together, you see, which is why I'm saying, hear my cry, or hear our cry. You're saying to me, hear my cry. And I'm saying to you, hear my cry. Hear what motivates me to be passionate about this one subject, whatever it is, you see. And I've learned that theologically. I grew up very strict, became sort of reformed Calvinist in my thinking, but somehow God gave me a scholarship in the United States at a Pentecostal Bible college that was like way off. Okay, I mean, hang from the chandelier is Pentecostal. That's my perspective, you see.
Okay.
But I couldn't go there and become an enemy, you see, because I was the odd guy out. And so I became an observer and then a questioner. And I never moved my theological foundation from being reformed, even though I went to that college. But I learned that those Pentecostal people loved the Lord with a passion.
True.
They walked with Christ. They wanted to see people come to Christ. They cared for people, some ways in a way that outdid my love. And so it made me realize that I may disagree with some of their theological points, but their walk with Jesus was authentic, you see, even though we disagreed. You see, and that allowed us to be friends, to dialogue together. They even allowed me to be the editor of the school newspaper. Here's a reformed guy in a Pentecostal school, not even sure about their theology that defines them as Pentecostals, but great friends, great achievers together in the Lord of what we were trying to accomplish, which is to impact society and to love people, to love God and to love people. That's the essence of the great commandments, right?
That's true. Yeah, but I have this sense, I have this feeling that all this became so much accentuated with the boom of social media, because before it wasn't so. I have friends that are Pentecostal, as you have also. Myself, I was raised Catholic. Then I became a Seventh-day Adventist. My family is Catholic. I have friends that are Baptist. Daniel is, I think, is Lutheran. A very good friend of mine. I know him for over 20 years. So, and we can see from various religious, various religion, various faith, but when we come together, we are very much connected. We are so connected that you cannot distinguish whether this is from here or from that side. And that is where we're trying to navigate or bring this podcast to say, you can have different opinions. You can have different views. And that is allowed because you are a human being, you are an individual on your own, you think differently, you have your own perspective, you are not a robot. I don't know if maybe that is, if you agree with me,
Right.
that makes sense to have different opinion, to have a world the way it is.
And I think coupled with, again, go back to the great commandments. Love the Lord thy God
Yes.
with all thy heart, strength, mind, and body, basically, and love thy neighbor as thyself. And so, if you're my, if we have differences of opinion,
Yes.
how do I show you love? If I go back to the scriptures, I've got to be loving, kind, patient, long-suffering, assume the best, correct?
True.
And then understand, if you go to 1 Corinthians 13, that we actually see through different prisms, and those prisms are formed by our life experience, by what we've learned from others, our backgrounds, you see. And so I have to assume that we don't agree on everything, because that's just not normal. It's normal for us to have differences.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I grew up in a privileged white South African world, you see. If I talk to someone my age who grew up on the other side of the apartheid regime, I think we're going to have some differences just because of our stories.
Yes.
You see, and so I can't assume that we're going to come to agreement until I've lived in the shoes of that person, they've lived in my shoes.
True.
And we're trying to understand, okay, now how do we love each other? How do we love our community based on our different stories, you see? And so there's a huge part of just being obedient to the most fundamental truth in the scriptures, or commands in the scriptures, love thy neighbor as thyself, just implores us to recognize the humanity, listen to the stories, understand the perspective, you see, and then do it in such a way that I could even repeat your perspective.
Right.
You see, so I've listened enough to be able to say to you, Minko, so what you mean is that here's why you're saying that the earth is flat.
All right.
You see,
All right.
and that your experience and your understanding and your knowledge says the earth is flat. You see, and you say, yes, that's what I'm trying to say. You see, now I may still disagree with you, but I've heard you. You see, I understand why you say, as an educated person, that the earth is flat.
Right.
You see, of course, that's not your position, I presume, but just for example's sake, you see.
Well, I've read a lot of flat earth theories and things like
you
that.
See, and then you can argue with me because I'm saying, no, it's actually a triangle, you see. And then I can make my point as to why the earth is triangular, you see, or whatever.
Yeah. So is there such political figure that you will want to share with the audience to say, for example, there is this person that I disagree with, a prominent political leader, but I like, calm down, calm down, calm down.
You see, it hasn't learned to listen to the opposition.
It doesn't want to listen to the opposition.
That cat wants to be petted, and if you don't pet it, it will.
Yeah. So is there such a figure in politics?
Well, look, I think there's some examples of it. For example, when I came to the United States, Jimmy Carter was in office.
Okay.
Ronald Reagan ran. I was not a conservative then. He ran, and he won in a landslide. But he never had the House and the Senate, you see, which means he had to govern with the House and the Senate. And the anecdote is that he would get Tip O'Neill, who was the leader of the opposition in the Senate, and every night they would sit together and have a whiskey together, or just meet together and listen to each other's perspectives. And then, having done that, he was able to govern the country with an opposition that in many cases came onto his side, you see. Another example of that would be Newt Gingrich and President Clinton.
Okay.
You see, Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House.
Yes.
And in many ways, as I look back and I say, who are the most two savvy politicians in my lifetime, as someone that's lived in America for 50 years, it would be those two men, you see. And so you had Clinton, who was very popular with the people. You had Newt Gingrich, that ushered in 94, I think it was, the contract with America.
Okay.
And saying, if you elect a Republican Congress, this is what we'll do. And then the two had to govern together, and it was a prosperous time for the country.
Okay.
Because you had a certain amount of compromise, but compromise based on a mutual understanding of knowing the direction that both of you wanted to go, even though each had to give up a little bit in accomplishing that. But if you look at the accomplishments of the Clinton era, despite what you think of Bill Clinton and despite what you think of Newt Gingrich, and the opposite extremes will throw big daggers at each one, and with perhaps some good reason in some cases. But in terms of governing and understanding, I think that was a good example of listening, dialoguing, and then working together. You see?
Okay. No, thank you very much. We've come to the end of our introductory podcast, and you've listened. This is just the foundation that was laid, and in the next episodes, so we will be diving to more intense topics, so you wouldn't want to miss it. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please, the red button on the bottom left, please click on that button. Also, like this video so that it's recommended to many people, because there are so many things that we'll be unpacking on this channel, and specifically on this series: abortion, gun right, and a lot of other controversial issues that many people from left to right disagree with. But as we heard, there is always a compromise. There is always a solid ground where both can live together. This was Hear My Cry with in the studio with Rob Smith, an engineer, and myself, Dr. Minko. See you next time. Until then, bye.